Hey y'all, thanks for joining us for another episode of 911 Delta Tethered for Life. This podcast may not be suitable to all listeners due to language and subject matters. Please listen with care.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 4 of 911 Delta Tethered for Life podcast. I'm Casey.
I'm Anna, and today we have another special guest for you. But before we get into that, we have a few housekeeping items. One, last week we talked about Maydays, and I just wanted to clarify for anyone listening who might not know what that is. It's just what it sounds like with a plane or a boat, but in the firefighting world, it's when a firefighter is in trouble, and they usually tend to happen during a structure fire or some type of collapse, and it can be a very scary time. And then the other thing is...
Yes, we want to thank everyone for continuing to listen. We love it and we're doing pretty well, I think. But we're asking everyone to please make sure that you are following us when you are listening on all the platforms so we can get the word out to more dispatchers and hopefully get some more folks to interact with us on this.
Yeah, and if you follow, you'll get a notification every time we drop a new episode.
Yes.
So please follow us. This week, we're continuing our conversation on call processing and how it differs all over the country. And that is why I've brought one of my most favorite people, the myth, the legend, the man who first trained me in dispatching and who introduced me to my husband, Michael.
Hello. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi.
I'm
Thank you
so
for having me.
excited.
Yeah.
So excited to have you on and to see you again, even if it is on Zoom. We had so many fabulous times working together.
We did.
Yeah. Me trying to keep you awake when it was just the two of us on nights. Do you remember?
So it was just y'all two, like at one time?
It was one or two or three sometimes,
okay.
I think, but mostly two. Mostly two.
Yeah. Right. Usually if we trained in somebody, we had a third.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But do you remember the night that you yelled at the Instaphone?
Because I was asleep and I thought that I had answered it, but I was sort of dreaming.
And he's and I'm sitting on the other side of the room, so you have to kind of reach over him to get to it, like where it was, and he's just yelling
Orange.
And I'm like, no, you got to pick it up and
pick it up.
Yep. Yeah. God.
And for everyone who may not know what the Instaphone is, you want to explain to them briefly what that is?
Oh my gosh. Well, so there's this nuclear power plant in the area, and if it blows up, that's how they would call you. And then if there's ever any issues with it, like when we had the earthquake, they give you updates on the safety of it and the environment through this Instaphone. So, yes. Yep. And then when we were talking about like training 3 people, we trained little baby dispatcher Hep, who's like a whole grown ass man now.
Baby Hep, he's more than a grown ass man. Big Hep.
Him and his brood of children. So
yes, he's great.
But yeah, we had some really good times, and then Michael up and left. Well, maybe I up and left first.
You left first.
But you left the state.
Yeah, I left. Yeah, we did have good times. I really missed it. You know, and it's bringing back memories for me, like I told you.
Yeah, we did have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, guys. So I know y'all know each other, but I don't know Michael. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yep. So I started in public safety when I was about 15 or 16. I joined the rescue squad ambulance. And I stayed with that for about 10 years, but I did not love it. I didn't like it. What really interested me, it fascinated me from the minute I started on the rescue squad was the dispatchers, their voices and the things they said, and just I never actually saw dispatch, but I always wondered what it was like and how you get that job. And even now, those dispatchers who in the county where I was volunteering, um, even now I've heard so many places, I've worked so many places, but I always think of them because they just sounded so good, and nobody has ever, in my opinion, sounded like they do. So I always think of those guys. That's how I got started, because I wanted to do that. So my first job was with we're in Anna, and it was the tiny little center, like two people or less or more. And then stayed there for about 6-7 years. Moved away. I moved to Tennessee, but I didn't dispatch there. So I went out to Colorado. I worked at Denver 911 for about 7 years, and I loved it. It's so different from anything. It's so different. It's so big, and I loved it. But got tired of the city, came back here to Tennessee, and now I work in a place that I would say is about the same size as where Anna works now. Maybe just a smidge bigger, but that's where I'm at now, and just dispatching. It's been 20 years since I started, but in total, I have about like 17 years on the job.
Cool. So
Yeah.
when you were out in the big city of Denver, what did you just dispatch one thing?
Yeah. So Denver is what they call a consolidated center, which there are three departments dispatching a total of 5 agencies. So it was police, fire, and paramedics, and I worked for the paramedics, and I only dispatched ambulances. That's really all you do. And
Wow.
it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine if you've never been to a place that busy, but you just sit there and you dispatch ambulances for 4 hours at a time. They only let you on, they call it on the board, for 4 hours. And then for the rest of your shift, you answer their admin calls. And then another agency that we had was detox. And we, the paramedics, dispatched detox vans. And the detox van in Denver, I'm not lying, was busier than the ambulances in where I work now. Like, you had a detox van dispatcher who was busier than I am now on ambulances. It's nuts. we had 4 detox vans who carry 4 drunk people each, running all around the city, picking them up all day long. So there was paramedics, detox, and then fire. They had their own dispatchers over there. And then the police ran police dispatchers and call takers. So it is a big operation, but I mean, it was so smooth. The way they do it is just so smooth. Like, I don't think I'll ever work in a place like that again. I'd like to.
Wow. That
Yeah.
sounds almost impossible.
Yeah, it's very possible. The CAD system that they had and the procedures that they had, it was so crazy that now that I'm back in this place, they don't do it that way. They don't understand. If you have something to say, like if you're on police and you have something to say to the paramedics or EMS here, you stand up and you're like, "Did you see that?" It's like, no, that's,
Yeah.
in Denver, it's like you send a notification message, and as a dispatcher, you have to look at those notifications because that's how your system runs. Like if I've got 5 calls pending and no ambulances, if I miss the notification that I could have canceled my last ambulance, I just fucked myself.
Right.
They grade you. They didn't grade you, but you got your evaluations based on how quickly you got the ambulance on scene. So they didn't care who you sent or how close or far away they were. But if it was an emergency call, you had to get them there before 8 minutes and 59 seconds. So if you got them there in 9 minutes and 1 second, you got a bad mark. And that's how it was. Yeah. I love
Wow.
it. It was like when you're on the board, it's like you're playing a strategy video game. And they on the radio, they're just so fun. It was different. It was different.
That sounds really awesome.
It
Neat.
is. Yeah, it is.
So if we paint the picture though, your PSAP was in the same place. So it was the PSAP too. The call takers answered the calls.
Mhm.
Did everybody have like their own cubicle?
So everybody had their own corner of the room.
Okay.
Every dispatcher had their own little portion of the desk. And we sat in circles. So, because like we would say something and we turn around and shout at somebody that we needed. Like we'd say, like, I need the detox van. And so we'd put up the call for the detox van, so the detox dispatcher would know that we wanted it, because as paramedics dispatch, if we wanted the detox van, we got it first because it was ours. And it was a hot commodity, the detox van, because what that does is if you've got an officer that wants the detox van, they'll sit there and wait for it, and then they will clear up. So the dispatcher always wants their units clear so that they can get the next call.
Right.
Oh.
I forgot the question. I get off track.
That was it. I just wanted to like paint the picture of what does the comm center look like. So the call takers, the dispatchers, each discipline's dispatcher has their own like corner of the room, but you're all still in the same place.
All in the same place. Now the call takers were different because so there was fire dispatch, paramedics, and police all in their corners, and then the call takers were just spread out everywhere. There was, depending on the time of day, there was like 20 to 30 call takers, and they all sat like just kind of amidst. So when you walk in, you sort of like pass through the sea of call takers, and some of them like you and some of them don't, but it's just kind of fun. You're like, hey, good morning, and then you walk over to your place, and that's you stay in your corner pretty much all day. But like, so fire was within a stone's throw of us, so sometimes we shouted over at fire, because fire, they're great people, but they are not good dispatchers, because they're not Endeavor, at least they're not career dispatchers. They're firefighters who accept a dispatch position for like 6 months at a time. So they didn't have the constant on dispatch all the time. So they didn't do it as good as like the police dispatchers did it. So fire, you'd send them a notify, fire, we need you, or need you to cancel or whatever, and nobody would look at it or read it. So we'd be like, fire, did you see the notify? But police were so far away because police did not want to be bothered, because they were so busy. Police were so busy. They had seven dispatchers plus 2 supervisors. They were so busy, and you didn't have time to even call them on the phone if you needed to. They were just always so busy.
Wow.
Okay, well, I'm still stuck on the 20 to 30 fucking call takers.
Yeah.
Like,
and wait, hold on.
what?
And 7 patrol dispatchers. Like,
I mean, because where we were from, that's the entire fucking staff.
That's our whole staffing
for the whole center.
Yeah.
Holy
on a
moly.
good day.
Is a big
Holy
impression.
crap.
Now, so 30 was like top of it, because usually it was like 15 to 20. Usually, they had this big board thing that told you how many call takers were on, how many were on a call, how many calls were holding. So, and all the time, and I hated it, but all the time, they would all be on calls, and calls would start holding. And when that happened, the whole room had to hear this loud ass beeping sound.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Beep!
The
Calls
effing
holding.
beep. Right.
Beep!
Yes.
Like,
That fucking
like,
beep.
Get off the phone and answer the next one, But I'm sure.
Did you really want to answer the phone? Were you like?
Yes, we all said it. We said, "Can I get this call?" But the way that the system was set up, we could not answer 911 calls. That makes sense. It really does, because we had other things to do.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I think they told us at one point, I think we answered like 12 to 15% of our own calls, because they would always transfer us medical places. They didn't EMD those, we did. And then they would always transfer us callbacks. Like if someone called 911, I called for an ambulance, where is the ambulance? They would transfer us those calls. We'd always get transfers from other agencies, just like 12% of our own calls. But even that was a lot. You're always answering the phone.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So do you think is that your favorite type of comm center, or do you like the smaller?
Without a doubt, by far, that's my favorite. Without a doubt, I loved that place. And I think every agency, so long as your population keeps growing, will become that. I've never been anywhere bigger and busier than Denver. But there are, Denver is, I think, 16th in terms of population in the country. So there's 15 places that are even bigger than that. But just as you get bigger, it has to become that. It has to be. You have to have separation, because where I am now, where we all have the same CAD view. We all just it doesn't work as well. It doesn't work as well as the bigger ones.
Interesting.
Do you think any type of call processing is more efficient?
Yeah, I do, because so when we were where Anna and I met each other, we had such few calls that one person would answer 911 and the other person would just sit there and listen. Like, so we would get on the phone together, and the one would listen, and then once they figured out what the code was, they would get off the phone and dispatch the call. Do you remember that, Anna?
I do.
We answered the phone at the same time.
I do. But when it was two people that worked really well together,
mm-hmm.
it worked well.
It did, but I mean, it was such a waste, because
it was a total waste. And then if we were busy, we were fucked, because you were, you do it yourself. But
yeah,
it was fun.
It was fun, but I would not consider that efficient, if that's what we're saying. And
right.
where I am now, it's very difficult. So you guys in where you work in now, Anna, you, even though you're on a channel, like say you're dispatching the sheriff, you still have to take 911 calls, right? If your call taker gets busy.
You could, right? Yeah.
It's not where I work now, about 8 of us. Sometimes we have up to 10 people, but sometimes we have a call taker, but most of the time we don't. So you have to do both, and it's a nightmare. It sucks. I hate it so much. And they say, when they hire you, they're like, do you have a good split ear? I'm like, well, I guess I do, but man, it's nothing. It's crazy, because you get 911 callers screaming and yelling and talking complete batshit crazy, and then you got your units calling out like traffic stops and stuff.
Right.
It's very difficult, and that's how it is all day long, all day, every day. That's how they expect us to do it.
Yeah.
That's not an efficient way at all. So, to be separated, to have, I'm dispatching ambulances right now, so my phone doesn't even take calls, because in Denver, there is no answer button. It just goes bloop, 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 and you're on the phone. So you go not ready if you are dispatching ambulances. Same thing with the police. The police didn't take calls at all. Police dispatchers.
Right. Oh my God. There's one lady. Man, I love her. And if that happens, she's on a patrol radio and she's on 911, and they start with the traffic stops, because now they all have MDTs. We got a new CAD, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She'd go right over the radio with is your MDT broken?
And
I'm
like, good for her.
Yes. Oh my God. Love it, because it sucks. And so now we have automated fire rescue dispatching.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to select the units, whatever, hit the buttons, but it's one button. You don't have to like light up the tone board anymore. But then it's all automated.
Mm-hmm. Like a computer voice.
Can mark and route all that stuff on their MDT. So it's easier if you're on fire to take calls.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on patrol, you're like the last frontier with the call taking, but it does happen, because I mean, with only 7 people on, at some point,
right, it's gonna happen. It's
gonna happen, right?
Yeah. I don't know, the way that we do it is so inefficient, and we don't train we train people when they first start to be call takers, right? But then, like the good ones, just immediately want to go be a dispatcher. So it's very rare that we only have one person who's a full-time call taker, and when you work on her shift, you love it because you don't get nearly as many calls.
Right.
So I guess the moral of the story is you need more call takers.
Yeah, you do. You do. And then I don't know, I mean, you guys, like, if you're doing NCIC, whatever your state criminal information network is, you're taking hits, dealing with that paperwork too. I mean, that's sometimes that person is our only call taker as well.
Yep.
And if you're getting your ass handed to you with paperwork, that's a bitch.
Yeah, it is. Numbers, they just like they call out the license or the driver's license numbers and stuff. And like if you're on the phone and they start yelling that shit, you're like, it's hard. And they tell us to always prioritize the radio. Even if you're doing CPR, prioritize the radio. If you've got officers calling out to you, that's difficult. The supervisor there. Now, if we're doing CPR, they'll usually say, I got your radio, so you can concentrate like on the pre-arrival instructions and stuff.
Right.
But the way they do it too, where I work now, I hate to criticize them, because I do enjoy it. I like it, but there's so many things that they could improve on. They don't train you on EMD until they're going to train you on the medical channel. So for even years, they will have people that say, 911, and they say, I need an ambulance. If you're not trained on EMD, you have to push the button that transfers the call out to everybody else. And a person EMD certified will then answer it. But that sucks.
That sucks.
So many calls are medical. So you're like, why do we have these people that can't even answer these calls? You're wasting everybody else's time. But, they claim that, EMD is expensive or whatever, but it's like, oh, well, get these people trained and it would make it so much more efficient.
Probably be cheaper than a lawsuit.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Later down the road.
Yep, you got an EMD to cover your ass. Well, get these people trained on EMD. Yep.
Right. I mean, yeah, that is annoying. Like, I think that's one of the first things that people should do. I mean,
absolutely. And in Denver, that's how they did it. Like you start and then you get EMD like immediately because you need it. They need it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the most important thing is for young dispatchers to know that's not usually taught?
I don't know. I read this question when you sent me the question, and I there's a lot of things, and I think that my answer that I've come up with may seem offensive, but the thing that I think newbies.
Well, then you're in the right place.
Yeah, let's say I doubt it.
Yeah, the thing that newbies really need to grasp is to let go of your expectations, because so many of them come in thinking that they know what it's going to be like, or they think that it's going to be like what they see on TV or hear on here somewhere, and it never is. And they either become a little jaded about the whole thing or disappointed with it, or they just up and leave, because they up and leave a lot.
Right.
So I would say lower your expectations, forget everything you think you know about this, and just learn from your experience. Your experience is really all you have in this job, because the more years you have, the more appealing you are to any other agency you're going to go to, but also for yourself. Your experience is how you handle the next call. And then also, so I said, let go of your expectations. Then the next thing to teach them is expect the unexpected at every single moment, no matter what, if it's an administrative line that is ringing or a 911 call that is ringing or an officer that is calling, do not have an expectation of what's coming, because that'll get you in the wrong mindset. Just be ready for anything.
That's a pretty good answer. And I can picture like the folks that come in before they're hired and they do observation, in the agency that we worked for together, and they're just like, man, this is so fucking cool. Like, I can't believe this. Wow, I want to stay longer. Yeah, no. It looks and sounds cool because we're cool. Like, because we know what we're doing. Like it no, we it wasn't all like this in the beginning. Like
Mhm.
and then when you touched on like life experience, like, the experience, I don't recommend for like young folks to even get into it yet until they have experienced actual life for themselves, because it's a lot of things that normal people, we've talked about this before, on a couple other episodes, that we hear not so normal shit like every single shift,
Yeah.
no matter what. And I don't know, it's a lot, and I don't think they realize what they really get into sometimes, especially being so young,
Mhm.
what shit they're going to hear
Well,
and take
yeah, and
home.
I think that, like, I know I know, like, Michael started young with it, and Matt started young with like firefighting and EMS,
Mhm.
but it seems like today too, there's such, how many times do we talk about now when we get young ones in to train, you actually have to train them how to use the phone and talk on the phone
Mhm. Yep.
before you can do anything else.
Mhm.
Like, they don't have a clue how to hold a conversation with somebody on the phone
Right. Because they're used
Right.
to
because they
that
That's
just been
true.
text and
texting.
shit. Yeah.
And it's like, what the I mean, I remember, I think it was when um one of our friends was training somebody last before she left. And I mean, I'm sitting over there on the fire radio and I'm listening, and there's like, she picks up a phone and she's doing stuff, and there's like all these awkward like silences, and when she got off, and I'm like, what kind of call was that?
Mhm.
And our trainer was like, "Oh, that was one of the deputies." I'm like, you wait, hold on. Like, you can't even talk to like a
Yeah.
coworker, like a normal human. I mean, it's just, and I get it when you're new and you don't know people, but
Right.
still, like, I mean, there was obviously
Yeah.
a point when he was like, like, "Hey, what's happening?" or "Have a good day," and she was just like, it's like, just say something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just like, you
You're right
have
though.
it's so interesting. So I mean, yeah, it's
Well, I
Yeah.
that's
mean, some of them will catch on, and because
yeah.
I trained in not, I don't train here, but I trained in both places, and I mean, it's like almost immediately with the first few phone calls or your first few minutes on the radio, you're gonna, you
Yep.
know
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
mean, I hate to say that, and that is
Definitely
discouraging.
gonna know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
discouraging to people who want to do it. But I mean, like people like us who have done it for a very long time now, we just know. We just know.
Right.
So that when we get one that seems like they're going to work out, we'll work a lot harder with them. But like
Mhm.
to say that they are young gives them a disadvantage is not always true. Like for me, like I was like 18 when I started, and we had. I mean, we had, like I told you earlier, like we had such a lucky foundation to get started in it, to being in such a small little teeny center, because
Mhm.
we learned how to do things like talk on the phone or transfer calls and stuff like that, and how to talk on the radio and stuff, but it wasn't overwhelming. So I think that was good for us, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, how do you keep your sanity being a seasoned dispatcher?
Well, I mean, for me, and it's not something that everybody will be lucky enough to benefit from hearing, but for me, it's just not working as much. Going to part time, full time, being part time all the time or most of the time is how I do it. It's just too many hours for me, made me insane. And I think that's like a lot of people, probably you too, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what drives you nuts. Is just working all the time, overtime, on call, all of that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. Some people can do it and they enjoy it and they make a lot of money. But that's how I did it. I turned to substances for a very long time, and it kept me calm and I guess kept my sanity. But I don't recommend that, and I'm a little ashamed of that. But
hold on, I don't think you should be. I don't think you should be. Well, I don't think you should be ashamed of it. First of all, but let's talk about. Let's segue to that, because that shit was legal in Denver, though.
Yeah,
right?
It was.
Like you told me when we chatted beforehand that was something y'all did at lunch.
Yeah, it was. It was legal.
Smoking marijuana was like. Can you? I mean,
it's a personal choice, at least when it's not an illegal choice, depending on where you live.
Right.
So I don't shame anybody. I do shame. I don't know about you, Casey, but I shame people now who smoke cigarettes. Like, I think that.
And you used to smoke.
I did, but now
I used to smoke too. Believe it or not.
I think that is the dumbest thing, really. To get yourself addicted to that. I smoked for a very long time cigarettes. But people, if you have to do that to keep yourself calm or whatever, you have to do it. But
no, I can't stand the smell or nothing anymore. Like,
yeah. Oh. I'm the opposite. I smell it and I'm like, oh baby, give it to me. But I don't. I could not.
I'd like to have all them damn breaks they get, though.
Exactly. Yeah. But I don't know what else to say. I don't work as many hours. When it gets to me and it stresses me out sometimes at work, I take a step back. I go outside for a little air or whatever, and then I just come back. I think the bottom line for me is it's just a job. Another thing I would tell them is don't get wrapped up in the hero business, or the we appreciate you so much business. Just think to yourself, this is a job. I answer the phone, I dispatch the cars, that's it. And I think that for me, I stay sane that way too. I don't get so connected to that business.
Yeah. I think that's boundaries.
Yes.
Is huge, right? Like, same thing as to why I don't work full-time now, but I think even as a full-timer, you can set some boundaries. I mean, there are state laws that protect you from having to work, a ridiculous amount of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, and in Michael's case, like the shift schedule that you were telling about, that's insane, where you're split-flopping days and nights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For like a whole week. You work 6 days in a row, basically. I guess
3 or nights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What the?
Yeah.
That's just insane. And like,
but they do that in a lot of places. They do that a lot. It's just an old-fashioned schedule.
Yeah.
The main purpose for it, and again, I don't mean to speak ill of my employer, but it's to get so much out of you without paying you overtime. You work 72 hours in a week, right? 3 days, 3 nights, 72 hours, but you only get 4 hours of overtime based on where the pay week begins. And that's criminal. That is criminal to work all those hours and only get 4 hours of overtime. Criminal.
It is. And it's got to be like I think Virginia has, like the laws protect against that, where I think other states probably have that too, but maybe not Tennessee.
Yeah, definitely not Tennessee. I mean, and plus, in terms of, overtime that they make them work or on-call time that they make them work, there doesn't seem to be a limit. If they have to work like 3 days out of their 7 days off. It's so ridiculous. It really is. But I mean, they got to fill the seats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is always the thing, you got to fill the seat.
Yeah, you got to have quality people, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't here. They don't do much for us for things like, mental health, or how do you keep sane. They'll send us an email every now and then that's like, oh, here's a yoga class, or here's a breathing exercise. Like, and the hospital offers like a I forget what they call it, like a come in if you need help sort of thing for free. But I mean, it's not dispatch specific. It's just like,
Right.
tell me
Who the
about
hell wants to do anything else but go home and sleep when you work all that shit? No way.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Uh, we do
Wow.
have good people though. We have good people, that the ones that stay for a very long time. Like we've got like people that have been there 30 years, and they're still
Awesome.
doing it, still doing the
That's
shift.
I
That's
can't
cool.
imagine. I mean, I
No,
guess like, if you're built for it, you're built for it, and you just get in that mode and you go. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the thing about working in the city. Like they respected your schedule, your time off. Never called you in. They always asked who wants to work over, and people would always volunteer, because the money was so good. Like the money out there was ridiculously good. But like mortgage and rent and stuff were much more
Right.
expensive. But
right.
they really respected you out there in terms of that sort of thing. But they had so many more people.
Interesting.
This has been very interesting. I'm still stuck on the 20 to 30 call takers. That's just
Yeah.
Not get over
Yeah.
the 20 call takers.
you had me at that. I've been blown away since that. Whoa.
Yeah. But I mean, you have to have that
Well,
many.
yeah, you would have
Yeah.
to for that
And there are
large of
always
an for sure.
so many calls. There's so many calls, so many like down parties, overdoses, just every single call, down party, down party, down party, down party, down party. It's just like nonstop. There's so many people driving around, and they see like homeless people just laying on the street, and they
Right.
call.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so people answer those calls.
It's so good to hear like a totally different perspective or a totally different way of doing it than I think
Mhm.
what a lot of us are used to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, especially for me who did the same thing for 16 years. I was only with the one agency, and man, I mean, I know there are other ways of doing things obviously, but
Mhm.
to actually talk with someone it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm lucky because, I don't remember where I saw it or heard it, but they say that there are three designations of PSAPs, obviously small, medium, large, right? And
Mhm.
I now have had the opportunity to work in all three. And of course, I told you I much prefer the large one, but I'm settled where I am, but I'm a little disappointed that there's nothing else.
Right.
All three. But it's cool. It's cool to work in a place that has more people than just two people, and less people than 50 people, because it's more intimate.
Right.
Say word intimate.
what's the disadvantage of that big of a call center?
Well, I would say that you don't get as much experience doing other things, because you have one responsibility, and that's it. If you're a call taker, you sit there all day and take calls. Or for me, I just dispatched ambulances all day. And like for the fire guys, like I said, they don't really do anything, because they've got what you've got, where the computer pretty much does everything. So they become lazy. But I guess I would just say that we would need exposure to more things to better understand what other people are doing, in the room. But I can't really think of a disadvantage to the way they do it. It's so efficient. It really is.
That must be nice.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Anything else you think the people should know?
No, just if you're thinking of starting this, just start it. And if it doesn't work out, don't be sad about it. If you are really experienced, like Casey, in one spot, if you have the drive to try something else, but stay in dispatch, look around. Try and expand your horizons. But for me, I could never do anything else. Like I could never have another career. This is it for me, and a lot of people feel that same way. So if you like
Well,
it,
I felt that way too. I didn't mean to cut you off, Michael. I'm
that's all right.
sorry. But I am kind of in the same lane right now. Just not dispatching anymore. But that's part of our name for our podcast, Tethered for Life, because once you've done it and in it, or even out of it, like it's still you, So it'll never not be a part of me for sure. So.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. The lady who made my wedding cake was a dispatcher. And when I went to meet her and went to taste cakes, we walk in there and she's wearing a headset. And I was like, what? And she asked us what, like I think she was just asking us what we were doing, and she's like, we told her, and she's like, oh my God, I used to dispatch for, the county down here. And I'm like, it's kind of obvious. And the way she did stuff.
You can
That
tell.
For sure.
This has been fun. And
it has been fun. We'll have to have him back on again.
Yeah,
for sure. Talk
Yeah.
about some other fun things. The only shout out I have this week is for Lori. She's reached out to us. So hey Lori. Thanks for listening.
And that reminds me, with Lori, we could ask Michael about this while he's on there. What do you think about changing the dispatcher designation to not a secretary? Because I assume that in Tennessee, you're still considered administrative or whatever as well, right?
I really have no idea. Are you talking about like a governmental job classification, like for your taxes and stuff, or?
So you know how like there are certain protections that public safety has that don't, and even like in the state of Virginia, there's different classifications for like firefighters and law enforcement. And some places where you work, you're considered, you can get the LEOS supplement, the law enforcement supplement. In other places you can't. But basically, changing the designation, at least in the state of Virginia, would mean that we were considered first responders and had all of those protections but instead of just being classified as secretarial, and then also that gives you protections under like work hours and things like that don't exist for just secretarial.
Well, I mean, a dispatcher, I think, would absolutely deserve that sort of protection if you worked in a place that was offering it to other people in public safety. I mean, you have to get up and drive in a blizzard, no matter what. You have to be there, and I guess that would be a nice little benefit for people like us who have no choice. We have to be there.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that too.
I agree. I think like, it here, like when people, the word operator just drives me insane. When people talk to you on the phone and they're like, okay, operator.
Yeah. Thank you, operator. Did you when you started working, did we have the old ass phone, or did we have the computer phone when you started, the Vesta?
We had a Vesta, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, when I started for the first few years, it was like we had that little thing that you actually push the button to pick up the line or answer the phone, and the screen was a CRT screen.
Oh God, yeah.
I missed those days. It was so fun. I felt like an operator. I felt like I had those little cords to pull out. But you just had little buttons to push. That was awesome. I loved the old days. There was hardly any phase 2, none of that nonsense.
Right, none of that nonsense.
It's like, if I don't know where you are, I'll try and call you back, but that's it.
Right. Oopsie.
That's right, our oopsie calls.
Well, yeah, I remember going from, because where we started, they had upgraded kind of everything, and then when I moved over to the bigger agency, they still had an old fashioned tone board for fire, where you had to push the buttons and then hit
Yeah.
set at the end. There
Yep.
was no computer. And I was like, what? And if you fucked up, you had to clear it
Hmm.
and
Yep.
start again. So like if if you were dispatching a fire and you're like, oh,
Yep. Yep.
and if you were quick enough, if you were quick enough, you could sneak one in there at the
Hmm.
end and it would tone it, but it wouldn't be in order, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you had some smart ass and they would catch it and they'd be like, well, it was out of order because tanker whatever. Well,
Yeah.
you're lucky they got on the first dispatch because
Right.
Mhm.
yeah.
Now you got computers to do it all for you, so you ain't gotta worry about
No.
Yep.
Do it all.
That's it.
But I think there's disadvantages to that too.
it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Big time.
people don't know. And then the
Mhm.
computers die and people are like,
What do I do?
oh,
What do I do?
yep.
Well, this has been awesome. And again, thank you. Nice to meet you, Michael.
You
I'm
too.
glad that you have come on with us.
I enjoyed it.
And Anna, did you have any shout outs, or Michael, do you have any shout outs?
I have no shout outs. I don't
I just
think.
want to say thank you to my family because they are such great support. My parents, my husband,
Awesome.
they're awesome. Yeah.
And again, guys, make sure that you follow us, listen to on all the platforms. Give us an email, shout out, or whatever you need to do. Contact us. It's podcast911delta@yahoo.com. We
Yeah.
would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Remember, rate, review, and follow us. And we will talk to you all next week.
Bye.
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 Thanks again, guys, for listening. Don't forget to join us next Thursday for an all-new episode where we'll touch more on dispatchers being at the same level as secretaries and not being considered first responders as of yet. And thanks again to all of the dispatchers and all of the first responders out there. We truly appreciate all that you do for the communities. Till next time.